Hey everybody, welcome back to Arlie at Home. I'm Arlie and I wanted to share with you guys how to make a delicious cheesecake using things that I found around the house. I did not go to the store for any of these ingredients. I had them in the fridge and I had them in my pantry. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't like throwing things out. I hate going through the fridge and finding something that's been expired for like a week and you're like, oh, I never used it, and it's so wasteful. I hate doing that. So before every trash day, which is twice a week in our area, I go through our refrigerator and I find things that are going to expire soon or that just aren't as phenomenal as they were when I first bought them, and I have to find a way to use them so that I'm not wasting. One of the things, ricotta cheese. So I bought this gigantic container of ricotta cheese because they did not have smaller containers at the store. Typically, if I just need a little bit for a recipe, I'll buy the smaller container, but they did not have that this time. So I had to get the big one. And what are you gonna do? I used it for manicotti. I made a really lovely manicotti dish, but now I'm left with a ton of ricotta. And what am I gonna do with it? I'm gonna make a cheesecake. All right, let's get started. First things first, you're gonna need a Springform pan, and this is a Springform pan. What it does is when you pull this little lever, right, the sides, mine's old, so bear with me, they separate and the bottom falls out. When that happens, your cake is separated and then you can remove it from the bottom with no issues. And these are great for cheesecakes. That's primarily what they're used for. And that's it. You have a Springform pan. So what I'm going to do with this pan to prep it is spread a little bit of butter along the bottom and along the sides, and I'm going to lay a sheet of parchment along the bottom only, not on the top, not on the sides or anything like you would with a regular baking dish. You just want to line the bottom. That'll help get the crust off in one solid piece when you transfer it onto a serving dish. To prep the crust, traditionally cheesecakes have a graham cracker crust. I don't have graham crackers and I'm not going to make graham crackers. So I looked around the pantry to see what I had available. And what I have is puffed sweetened wheat cereal. Just a little bit left in the bag. As you can see, there's maybe like a cup and a half, maybe 2 cups in there. I'm going to use that. I'm going to add in a few salted Marcona almonds. That's going to give it a little bit of balance because everything is so sweet in the dish that the tiniest little bit of salt will benefit in the long run. And then I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of honey to it. I buy honey that's from my area, that is 100% raw, unfiltered. Feel free to use whatever you like. You can even use agave, but I stick with the honey. So a couple tablespoons of honey, a few Marcona almonds, and some puffed wheat cereal. We're gonna make a crust out of that. It'll work, I promise. My pan has been buttered, and now I have to add the parchment paper. So I have this sheet of parchment, and I just kind of laid it over the top to measure the amount. It should reach the edges pretty decently, but to get it round, or round-ish, what you're gonna do is take your sheet of parchment and fold it in half, and then in half again, so you have kind of a rectangle. The center point in here, you're gonna fold it diagonally onto that point. Now, again, it's not perfect. You don't need it to be perfect. You're just kind of making a little bit of a cone, okay? When you do that, you're gonna lay your parchment over the top of your pan and kind of eyeball the center of the pan. When you do that, this will give you a point of reference to cut so you can get a round out of your parchment. I'm going to show you how I do that real quick. So I'm going to take my scissors and just kind of cut a little cone like this. And when you open it, that's what you get. Now, it might be a little big, it might be a little small. If it's a little big, that's no big deal. If it's a little small, it's no big deal. You can make it work. Okay. You're going to press it down into the bottom. Mine was a little bit big. Not a big deal. It's still gonna work. And you have parchment on the bottom without having to be absolutely exact. Now, even though it's been buttered and the sides have been buttered and the parchment's on top and the parchments don't stick, I'm still going to take a tiny bit of the butter and just rub it over the parchment itself, just to ensure the non-stick ability. I made that up, but we're going to roll with it. Okay, so the crust, I put it in the food processor, the honey wheat cereal, or the honey wheat cereal, and the 2 tablespoons of honey, and I added off camera 1 tablespoon of butter and ½ cup of rolled oats. I had to do that because it wasn't holding as tight. As soon as I added the rolled oats to the cereal and the almonds and the butter, that you push it together, that's what you get. It holds itself together. That's what you want. So this is gonna end up tasting like those granola bars, the crunchy ones with honey and oats. Hopefully. We'll see. So I'm gonna dump this down into the pan, like so, and just spread it out evenly. What you can do is take a measuring cup and use that to push down on your crust and push it into the edges, so you have a uniform crust all the way throughout that's flat. Now, personally, I don't like it when my crust is perfect. I like it when it's a little higher on some points, a little lower on other parts. It looks homemade and real and not machine made from a factory. So that's a personal preference for me. I try not to overthink the crust too much. So we're gonna take this crust, we're gonna pop it into a preheated 325-degree oven, and we're gonna bake it for 12 minutes. After 12 minutes, we're gonna remove it from the oven, set it aside, and let it cool while we work on the ingredients for the filling and putting it all together. Thank you for sticking with me. "12 minutes, be right back." Okay, so I have 1 cup of sugar already measured into my mixing bowl, and I am going to add 12 ounces of ricotta to the sugar. So it's a cup and a half. That almost uses up all the ricotta I have left. I hate to use that. I'll probably come up with some kind of dip later for like bread or something like that. I'll come up with something, but it's absolutely not gonna go to waste. Cover that, place it up to the side. So now I want to whisk together the ricotta cheese and the sugar just to blend them. You could do this in a stand mixer or even in your food processor. I'm doing it by hand just to show you, fairly simple. So once you work it in together like this, the sugar will start to dissolve in the cheeses as you're blending them together, and you have this beautiful creamy mixture. So now to this cream cheese, you are going to add 1 pound, 16 ounces, 2 blocks of cream cheese, plus 4 ounces, plus half a stick. Now, the reason this is all mixing so easily, so well, is because I have had these out at room temperature. You do not want to start with cold cheeses. You will be mixing for a very long time. So I'm going to incorporate 1 block at a time. When you have them at room temperature, they're nice and soft and they're easy to mix together. And even still, it's chunky, but we'll get there. A little bit of elbow strength will get you in there. The reason I wanted to do it by hand instead of using the equipment that I do have, because I want to show that you don't necessarily need all of the fancy dancy equipment to get the job done. You can still do it. Don't feel like you have to sacrifice because you don't have all of this fancy equipment. So very carefully adding the extra 4 ounces in, and we are going to whisk this up and blend it until it's all mixed together. Okay, once it is fairly smooth and creamy, we are going to add 4 whole eggs, one at a time, cracked into a ramekin. And I've said this in my videos before, but I'm going to repeat it always. You always want to crack your eggs into a separate container. The reason why is you never know when you're going to get an eggshell or a bad egg. So we're going to whisk that in one at a time. You whisk it in one at a time just to make sure that it's getting evenly distributed throughout the batter, and that you're not having chunks of cheese stuck to the walls or bits of egg white. Next. Okay, once that has been completely blended in, your eggs are completely distributed, you have a nice creamy batter. The last thing you're gonna add, last 2 things you're gonna add is about a teaspoon and a half of vanilla, and about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Now I squeeze the juice into my hand to make sure that I'm not getting any seeds. You want the lemon juice, you don't want to skip this step because it adds a little bit of tang to your cheesecake. This is an extremely rich dessert, and that little bit of tang helps break it through and helps balance the flavors out. Kind of like I did with the crust, with the almonds, the salted almonds, and the honey cereal. Okay, this is perfectly smooth. Let's make sure though, by taking our rubber spatula, scraping along the sides and the bottom, and making sure that there are no chunks that haven't been incorporated, because that will come through later as a weird bite, and we don't want that. Okay, let's set this aside and bring in our crust. Okay, we are ready to put our filling into our crust. First things first, we are going to take a little ramekin, and to this ramekin we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of sugar, and we're going to mix this up. This is going to become a barrier between the crust and the filling, so that the crust doesn't get all bogged down and soggy when we add our filling, and it stays crisp. This is your protection barrier. So we're going to sprinkle this evenly. You might not use the whole amount, and that's fine, but it's better to have a little extra than not enough. You just want to sprinkle this about evenly, dusting it. Okay, perfect. So now you see it's got kind of, there's little bits rolling around. That's no big deal, but that's going to become kind of like a moisture barrier for our filling. Now carefully pour this in. Okay, and make sure that it's spread evenly throughout. Perfect. I did not do this before, and I'm going to do it now just to share with you guys. If you don't feel confident in the capabilities of the Springform pan, I know mine can withstand and it won't leak because it's never done it before. But if you're just not sure and you want to avoid the mess, you can wrap it in a sheet of foil. So I cut a sheet of foil that's bigger than the pan itself, and I will just carefully wrap it all the way around, nice and tight. And you can double that up if you want to, but to me there's no need. Now we're going to take a roasting pan. Mine has really good handles on the side. It's very sturdy. I like it a lot. And we're going to remove the roasting rack itself and place the cheesecake into the roasting pan. We're going to place this into the oven at 325. It's been preheating, and I'm going to fill this halfway up the sides of the Springform pan with hot water. And we are going to bake this for about an hour, hour and 10 minutes until the center of this cake does not jiggle. You see how this jiggles when I move it slightly? When it sets and it's firm, and when I move it like this in the pan and it doesn't jiggle, that's when we know we can take it out. Okay, everybody, so now we're going to place this into the oven. Like I said, it's been preheating at 325. So very carefully, because this is liquid, we don't want to make a mess. We're going to place the whole roasting pan into the oven, and then again, very carefully, we're going to fill the roasting pan with hot water until it covers about half of the cheesecake pan, of the Springform pan. This is called a water bath, and you do this primarily with custard based desserts to keep it moist and keep it from cracking. The steam created by the water bath prevents the cake from cracking. That's perfect. So now very, very, very carefully, we're going to slide this into the oven, set it, and forget it for the next hour. In an hour, we're going to come back in an hour, and we're going to test the center. Like I had said, we're going to jiggle it very carefully and see if the center has set or if it hasn't. If it still jiggles and is still moving, then we're going to leave it in and check every 10 minutes to make sure that it's ready to go. The timer has gone off, and now I'm going to check it to see if it's done. So I grab tongs and just grab the edge just to be safe. And as you can see, when I jiggle it, it doesn't really, the center doesn't move. I mean, it's not liquid anymore. So that means that our cheesecake is set and it's ready to come out. Okay, now that it's out, we're going to take the roasting rack that was in the roasting pan, set it on the side, and we are going to very, very carefully remove the cheesecake from the pan. And set it right next to that roasting pan, because now we want to remove that protective foil from around the outside very, very carefully. I'm just going to place the Springform pan on the side and let it cool. Once it comes to room temperature, you can put it into the refrigerator. Minimum of 4 hours, overnight would be best, and have it cool completely. Okay guys, so you can tell we've been eating from this cheesecake. It came out amazing, and I just wanted to show you a simple way to serve it up. Because we put that parchment on the bottom, It just comes off very easily. It doesn't stick to anything. Very carefully, just take your slice of cheesecake and place it onto your plate. Beautiful slice of cheesecake. Now, this is a plain cheesecake. Nothing has been added to it, but I'm gonna add a couple of sauces. Chocolate and caramel from Ghirardelli. And these are great. I got it at the store. And you just swirl it back and forth. And it looks so beautiful. You can choose just one sauce, or both, or none. It's entirely up to you. It's delicious on its own. My husband loves it with a little strawberry on the side. So I just sliced this one almost to the edge, to the end here, but I kept the top on it so it holds it together, and you just fan it off to the side. Put it right there on the side. How beautiful is that? That is an extraordinary dessert. Things that were just kind of in the fridge that I had to use up. Not bad. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for joining and for watching. If you do love my content, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you love my shows, and don't forget to ring the bell so that you get notified every time I put up a video. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, for all your comments and for all your well wishes. I hope you enjoy this cheesecake as much as we did. Thank you.